To start off here, let me ask you a simple yet complicated question that hopefully you'll have an answer to by the end of this video. What does it mean to you to be normal? Probably someone who doesn't talk to themselves in different voices when they think no one else is listening, or someone that has such trouble with math that they explain just that on a math test, or someone who prefers to spend all their free time focusing on various hyperfixations over making friends or even going outside. Well, I do all these things. Judge me if you dare. And there have been frequent points in my life where I've been just as proud as I was ashamed of these quirks. Most of the pride came from knowing that it wasn't exactly my fault or something I could control. Why do I do these things? Well, I'm autistic. Autism in psychiatry is a pervasive developmental disorder of children, characterized by impaired communication, excessive rigidity, and emotional detachment. Formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, is now commonly known as autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Now, I was well aware that I was different even before my diagnosis. My peers from each school I went to made certain of that. But everything I know about myself now, I learned the hard way. And by the hard way, I mean that it took a suicide attempt at 15 for specialists to test me. I'm on the very edge of the light end of the spectrum. I'm able to speak fluidly, I can manage my own hygiene, drive, and follow basic rules. What I'll probably struggle with for the rest of my life are things like deciphering black and white thinking, patience and focus, and anything that isn't hands-on or visual learning. I still ask myself how I passed high school even without an art class to keep me sane. Well, even with these answers, I felt even more lost, because all the ableists around me, calling me every slur in the book, had slowly taught me that the autistic kids have no place in this world. Thankfully, they were wrong, as Mom introduced me to someone who taught me to see my autism as a blessing for the first time. I got to meet animal scientist and autism specialist Dr. Temple Grandin in person, and even co-host a talk show with her, courtesy of an old friend. Dr. Grandin has always led with reason that I find myself relating to incredibly often. Possibly the best example of this is her analysis of the different kinds of minds, how they work, and how they interact. There are 3 different kinds of minds that can apply to both the spectrum and the common folk. The first is the visual mind, or the photorealistic mind. This type of thinking is probably the trait I have most in common with the doctor. The only difference is that she thinks pretty much entirely in pictures. She refers to her brain as the Google image search tool, where a generic example of a word is processed into a thought. Visual thinkers struggle with patterns, text, numbers, etc., and it might as well be impossible to portray them as well as other minds can. No wonder I was never good at any math, hence my common reaction to all the stupid tests we took. I'm literally never going to use any of that knowledge anyway for the kind of work I want to do later on. Of course, 2 counter-arguments to that would be that I most likely remember none of it, and that I did have to once calculate the area of a circle to make a skirt. The next kind of mind is the pattern thinker, or the mathematical thinker. Pretty self-explanatory with that second term, but nonetheless. Opposite of the visual mind, pattern thinkers thrive in the basic academics and perform the weakest with visuals. I would say the arts, but that isn't entirely true, as musicians fall in the category of pattern thinkers. Really, all you have to do to understand what I mean by that is to look at any piece of sheet music. The notes make patterns that translate into melodies and tunes. I took an entire class on music theory in my senior year of high school, and I still don't understand how it all works. And finally, the last type of mind is the verbal mind, or the auditory mind. Somewhat similar to the pattern mind, verbal thinkers think in words, what I consider to be the normal mind. This mind is probably the most problematic type of all because, and I'm sure the majority of you can agree with me on this, not everyone can speak perfectly, in front of crowds, or even to themselves. I included an entire bit of speech fails as a part of my final in one of my previous classes. I'm surprised I haven't fully slipped up yet. The European school system has apparently already realized that everyone thinks differently, and how the education system here in America should be changed to let kids in instead of weeding them out because they don't perform well with academics. People here are slowly starting to realize that those who may hold the future of the arts are probably one of the most important kinds of folks. What you may turn to for inspiration, regardless of what field you may be studying or working in, is up to those who excel in the various fields of entertainment. I still think it absurd that my mom and I had to actually fight to get an art class for freshman students, but I think the Western system is finally starting to account for those who think differently than what was once portrayed to be the only way to learn. It's all left me with some pretty stable life advice, which I'll close off with. If you're autistic, or you think you appear somewhere on the spectrum, if you have bizarre tendencies, or never did well in a specific academic subject, let me tell you, you are not stupid. If you can find your strength, run with it. I'm trying more than ever, and I'm even applying my life experiences to some of my own work. There are plenty of thinking types out there, from visual to verbal, even more to still be discovered and defined. And as Dr. Grandin herself emphasizes consistently, the world needs every last one of them. Now when you reply to this video, contrast your definition of normal from the start of this video to the end. See if they're any different. Thank you.